Yes, you are.
Very good morning, participants. Today, it is the final day of this international FDP. We have a wonderful guest, Dr. Shauli Mukherjee. With a purposeful career in the education space spanning over more than 20 years, Dr. Shauli Mukherjee has dedicated her life towards promotion of child-centric and activity-oriented education. A passionate educationist and a thought leader with a background of setting up a leading new age K-12 schools, Dr. Mukherjee has been the founder and principal of Adams World School and STEM World School, the first STEM school in West Bengal. Under her inspiring leadership, STEM World School had been ranked and awarded as the second best international day school in West Bengal by Education World. Dr. Mukherjee ardently believes that the purpose for meaningful education is to develop lifelong learners, creative thinkers, and responsible and global citizens who are confidently equipped to face the challenges of an uncertain and constantly unfolding future, all through her career in education. Dr. Mukherjee had actively contributed to and spearheaded the process of creating a personalized and an engaging, stress free curriculum for children of all age groups. She has been the recipient of numerous awards, including National Quality Excellence Award, Gem of India Awards, Peerless ABB Pratibha Swakriti Award, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Award, Guru Prasad Samman, Guru Varya Samman National Education Leadership Award, etc. She had also been awarded for being among India's top 50 women leaders in the education industry by the Academic Council of ULTEX. She is associated with the premier education organization across India as well as globally in senior advisory capacity. As a highly prolific motivational speaker, she is regularly invited to numerous national and international conferences, summits, conclave, and events to share her insights on the futuristic and transformative role of education. She is currently working as Director of School of Education and Dean of Student Affairs at Adamas University, Kolkata. With this beautiful introduction, now may I please request Shauli Mukherjee to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Wishing all of you a very, very good morning. Right at the very outset, I would like to extend my thanks as well as gratitude to the Abdul Hakim College of Engineering and Technology, and especially School of Management for organizing this international FTP and inviting me to speak on this platform. So, I will be speaking on reimagining education and learning for 21st century learners. Now, this is something, the topic is something which is very, very close to my heart. And not only that, uh, I believe that a deliberation needs to be there on this particular issue and topic because it is the need of the hour. So we all know that the 21st century world is undoubtedly a VUCA world, and that is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world where we are faced with unique and unheard of challenges almost on a regular basis. Now, since the turn of the century, the chaotic, turbulent, and rapidly changing environments in which we live have actually become the new normal. Exploding technological developments, dramatic demographic growth, immigration, ecological disasters, and geographical trends, they have all disrupted our lives at an ever increasing pace and breadth. Now, these circumstances, definitely accelerated by the global pandemic, have caused a major breakdown of order in almost all the organizations. And that definitely includes education as well as higher education. As the four VUCA components of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, they all interact with each other in chaotic and sometimes in really conflicting ways and manner. Now, in the months since the entire world has been embroiled in a global pandemic, there has been considerable debates, discussions about how higher education should both cope with its immediate threat while also considering pivots towards new models and innovations for the future. Now, thanks to the COVID times, actually, which had caused major disruptions to our traditional thought patterns concerning education. On the positive note, it had actually compelled all of us to think and act outside the box and impress considerable flexibility and adaptability and devise innovative strategies and methods to significantly address the emerging global complexities concerning the sphere of higher education, especially. Now, if we consider certain statistics pertaining to the outcome of higher education, especially over the past 1 decade or so, we unfortunately see that 50% of the graduates, after completing their formal higher education, do not even manage to get a decent job. And secondly, employees would moreover reconfirm the fact that more than 80% of the ones who do manage to get a job somehow are not able to retain it. They definitely have to be reoriented and reskilled on the job front in order to somehow retain their job. So, if one of the major aims of our education system is to ensure a somewhat decent living after the completion of the formal higher education, we cannot help but agree to the fact that our current education system is miserably failing. One of the major reasons being the ever widening gap between academia and industry expectations. Now, academia is undoubtedly failing to prepare the learners to match the industry standards, expectations, and readiness. And one of the major implications of that being that the system is actually increasingly churning out more job seekers rather than more job creators. Now, we all know that the traditional educational norms force our learners to metaphorically draw and color within the lines. That is to comply, to conform, and to compete. Every learner is given the same amount of time to learn the same thing in the same manner and preferably on the same day. Now, no wonder that the learners, they struggle miserably to realize their true potential under this traditional, conventional, and orthodox system of education. Added onto this, there are certain flaws, inherent flaws embedded in our current education system, which needs to be addressed in significant urgency. Say, for instance, the concept of standardized testing, which is prevalent across all the spheres of education, be it in pre-primary education or primary education or higher education. So standardized testing, we have to understand that it relies completely on the learner's ability to conform and to comply. So it does not give any leverage to the learners to hone their creativity and innovation. Secondly, since childhood, we force our children to draw and color within the lines. But at the same time, on the contrary, we expect the same learner, when he or she grows up, to be an out of the box thinker. So just consider what an irony is that. Additionally, if you consider, you will see that our entire education system places a lot of focus on the learner's ability to come to a consensus of a common, correct answer rather than finding the meaningful, thoughtful question. So it focuses its emphasis more on answering correctly rather than coming up with a thoughtful question. Next, we all know that since childhood, be it the parents or the educators, they force the children to come first in everything, be it in academics or sports or in extracurricular activities. It can be any kind of thing. But you have to come first in everything. Coming first is so very important, which means that cutthroat competition is ingrained in the children right from the very beginning. Though the two important skill sets that are essential to thrive in the 21st century happens to be collaboration and cooperation and not cutthroat competition. So judging by all this, we sometimes feel that our current education system does not need any reformation, because when we say reformation, we're trying to mean that we're trying to mend a broken model. So that is not what our education system requires. What our system requires is a complete overhaul, a complete revolution, and nothing short of a revolution will work for our current education system. We have to understand that the real world, which is beyond the confines of the fancy physical infrastructure of an educational institute, rewards those amply who can actually think out of the box and can carve his or her own path in life. And in order to sustain and thrive in the 21st century, ever increasingly complex workforce, the learners have to be oriented more towards collaboration and cooperation rather than cutthroat competition. In order to address and challenge the emerging global complexities, we do not need mechanically trained minds loaded with facts and figures. Minds which are systematically formulated to think alike. No, that is not what we require right now. And the global pandemic has proved that. What the world requires are innovative and creative minds, minds which are capable of divergent thinking and out of the box ideation. That is the need of the hour, and that is what the world requires. Additionally, there has to be significant focus on prioritization of important and critical 21st century skills. Skills such as critical thinking, effective communication, creativity, meaningful collaboration, analytical thinking, complex problem solving, effective decision making, and at the same time, nurturing one's emotional intelligence, also giving due importance to one's creativity quotient, CQ, passion quotient, PQ, happiness quotient, HQ, spiritual and social quotient, SQ, and most importantly, which the pandemic has taught us, is that we have to nurture and hone the learner's AQ, that is adversity quotient. How to deal with the vagaries of life, how to deal with the uncertainties of life, how to cope with the uncertainties and unpredictabilities of existence. So AQ, which is so very significant and important. Now, since our topic today is reimagining education and learning for 21st century learners, let us now see what are some of the prime characteristics of a 21st century learner, whom we normally refer to as Generation Z. Now, Generation Z is basically entrepreneurial. They are potential risk takers. They have creative and innovative ideas. They are not afraid to chase those ideas, and they believe that everything that they don't know currently is a simple click or two away. They are digital natives as opposed to us who are digital migrants. They are focused, they are competitive, and for them, patience is a lost art. They want everything now, they want instant gratification. They welcome change. They constantly seek new ideas and experiences, and they're always up for challenges. They prefer independence and freedom. They want to be heard. They believe that their ideas are valuable. Freedom of expression is absolutely essential to Generation Z. They truly care and they want to make a positive difference in the world. They have a desire to create or find meaning. They have a motivation to contribute to the world. They are definitely technology dependent as opposed to technology fluency. They view their digital device as an extension of themselves. They truly live and breathe the virtual connection life. Social media is a crucial element to this generation. They're not after work life balance so much as they want to establish a proper work life blend, always expecting flexibility and adaptability with their work schedule as well as with their lives. So, if these are some of the essential characteristics of Generation Z that who are actually our 21st century learners, whom we are actually trying to teach and educate as educators, we have to understand that our conventional and orthodox educational norms will definitely not serve them anymore, as our current education system is actually essentially a byproduct of 19th century industrial revolution, which promotes a one size fits all educational structure. Now, I call it as an industrial factory model of productivity, which treats all learners as essentially the same and does not acknowledge the creativity, innovation, and passion of the learners. So, from this organized, formal, and rigidly structural form of education, we have to make a complete and paradigm shift towards personalized, happy, fulfilling, stress free, creative, and organic learning ecosystem. And in order to do that, we must allow the young learners more time which they can effectively utilize in following their passion, in following their curiosity, creating, sharing, exploring, and experimenting with novel and unique ideas. We have to stop stigmatizing failures and mistakes and realize and admit that both are essential in an effective learning experience. If we truly want our present generation to evolve into creative problem solvers, we must give them ample scope to explore the three essential P's, and that is play, passion, and purpose. We have to understand that it is only through a potent combination of play, passion, and purpose that a person becomes truly creative. And we must allow these creative minds to not only seek innovative solutions to the problems around us, but also to seek inherent problems in the existing solutions. I also believe that the 21st century learners should have complete responsibility and ownership of their own learning. And in order to make it happen, they must have both choice as well as voice. I repeat, both choice as well as voice to determine what, where, and how they would want to learn. Now, in order to make all this happen and in order to nurture such creative minds of our learners, the education leaders, the educators, the educational policymakers, and that is the entire educational fraternity, must come together in order to redefine and reimagine their roles in driving this momentous shift towards empowering individual learners by maximizing their learning potential to ultimately evolve into self motivated and lifelong learners. Both the educators as well as the learners, they have to wholeheartedly embrace the concept of anytime and anywhere learning. And they have to stay committed to continuous learning, unlearning, and relearning across all significant phases of their lives. In fact, one of the positive offshoots of the global pandemic happens to be the paradigm shift from teaching to learning, especially when it comes to the educators, whom we all presume would definitely continue to inspire, to motivate, to stimulate, and at the same time facilitate the love for lifelong learning among the young learners as well as among themselves. It is for all of us to realize now more than ever that teaching is not a mechanical task of transferring knowledge and content from one person to another. It is, in fact, one of the most creative and the most sophisticated profession, which helps to enable the young learners to evolve into a more confident, a more equipped, a more dynamic and authentic version of themselves. A truly reimagined education system will have mentors instead of teachers and learners instead of students. From the sage in the stage, the teacher has to evolve into a mentor who will be a guide by the side, a co learner, a friend, a philosopher, who will be, a coach, who will not indoctrinate, teach, or give all the answers. Rather, will probe the learners to seek the solutions or the answers themselves. Similarly, a student is someone who is syllabus oriented and learns for marks, grades, certificates, and degrees. But a learner is not like that. A learner is a lifelong learner and learns for the sake of learning and for the joy of learning. A learner moves from a structured learning to an organic learning. He memorizes less and applies more, and thus becomes a human resource from a mere human being. So that is the kind of shift that we all must think about if we are speaking about a reimagined system of education for 21st century learners. Now we must realize that just as the climate crisis in the form of global warming is causing a havoc in the entire world currently, there is another significant crisis, and that of the human resources, which should be dealt with the same urgency and importance as the former. The human resources, which I believe, they are very much like natural resources, often buried deep, and they do not show up unless you look for it and create suitable conditions where they can actually thrive. And this applies to our learners, educators, and education leaders as well, because education is not a mechanical process. It is primarily and significantly a human process because it deals with human beings. I mean, Whether you are an educator or you are a learner, I mean, both are human beings, right? So it's a human process. So as educators, we do not teach history, geography, or maths. That is, we do not teach the subjects. Rather, we teach the learners who are essentially human beings. Hence, I believe that the real role of leadership in education should never be one of command and control. Rather, it has to be one of climate control. And what I mean by climate control is that there has to be, you know, a suitable climate. There has to be a creation of a suitable climate by the education leader, a climate of possibility and immense potentiality. But the learners, which definitely here includes both the educators as well as the learners, because both are lifelong learners, so which will give that climate to the learners to strive, who will not only strive to exist, but rather continue to thrive. After all, success in the real sense of the term is defined by the essential shift from striving to thriving. In fact, one of the significant learnings that COVID-19 has gifted all of us is that there is no substitute to investing in human capital and potential human resource. It seems that it needed one C to bring about the power and importance of another C. That is, it needed a corona or a COVID to bring about the power and importance of collaboration and connectivity. The pandemic has impressed upon the fact that the educators cannot continue to work in silos anymore. I mean, they have to collaborate, share, and exchange their viewpoints, ideas, concerns, and insights in order to make real learning visible as well as possible. Now, we all know that, as educators, the greatest resources that we can have is each other. And without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspective. So, collaboration is definitely the key. And along with that, I would like to say, with respect to both the teacher as well as the taught, another important key is engagement. As it is said that when a teacher fails to engage the learners, he or she actually ends up enraging them. So if you don't want to enrage your learners, you have to engage them. I mean, there are absolutely no substitute for that. Now, increasing rate of student dropouts, another critical and critical point of concern for all the educators. So increasing rate of student dropouts across all the stages of education itself presents an alarming statistics. But we have to understand that this is merely the tip of an iceberg. More alarming is in fact the percentage of students in your classrooms who do not technically drop out of the system, but remain utterly disengaged in the process of education all throughout their tenure in education. And we have to admit that we have students like this in our classrooms who are technically and physically present with us, but who are completely disengaged with the educational process. Probably because of a disengaging and narrow curriculum that we continuously teach them, which fail to speak to their specific interest, passion, and talent. I mean, it's not their fault. It's the fault of the system, it's the fault of the curriculum, it's the fault also of the educators. Disengaged learners often pick up careers and professions wherein they do not love the work that they do, but rather somehow endure it, either due to financial or societal pressure. Now, outdated contents, which are utterly dissociated from the real life context and experiences, which most of our educational institutes still continue to deliver, will continue raising a generation of disengaged and disinterested learners as well as professionals. So we all have to be very, very careful about this. If we want to raise a generation of happy and truly successful individuals, we must recognize, we must celebrate the creative genius, the inquisitive mindset, the talent, and the individuality that each and every child brings along with him or her. The one size fits all and the factory model of education, it must inevitably give way to a more personalized, a more fulfilling, a more stress free, and a creative form of education. Now, who's going to make this happen? We all have to come together in order to redefine our education system so that it starts, it again starts speaking to the passion, interest, and the ability of a learner. And I believe that teachers, the educators, they have the greatest role, they have the greatest responsibility and ownership, as well as the greatest power in their hands in transforming our current education system. I would like to conclude my deliberation by posing a very thought-provoking question to all those who are attending this session today with me. Now, realizing and understanding the basic facts that our current education system does not need any reformation. It does not need any quick tweaks or a repair, but rather it requires a complete overhaul. It requires a complete revolution for the benefit of our 21st century learners, who is our future, who is the future of our nation, who is the future of the entire world. Now, understanding all this, should we still continue to align ourselves with a system that encourages our learners to follow and not to lead, to fit in instead of stand out, and to conform instead of challenging the status quo? So with this question, I would like to end my deliberation. I'm open for any kind of questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Dr. Shauli, we have few questions. So I have three questions which have received it. So can I?
Sure.
Okay. So what is your opinion on National Education Policy 2020? How does it going to impact the post-pandemic world to the schools and colleges?
I'm extremely hopeful and optimistic about national education policy. And I believe, as a progressive educator myself, I believe that national educational policy is an absolute breakthrough. It is very, very revolutionary in its conceptualization and in its conceptualization of actually reimagining education and learning, something which I have been speaking to you for the last half an hour. So whatever I had spoken in my session, I think national education policy also, resembles to that. So it definitely speaks about inclusivity, it speaks about diversity, it speaks about quality, teaching learning experience, it speaks about experiential learning. It speaks about the fact that we have to move away from rote learning. We have to move away from syllabus oriented learning, and we have to gradually enter into the sphere of an organic learning, where learning happens for the sake of learning and for the joy of learning. So I am extremely hopeful that a proper implementation of National Education Policy 2020, because according to conceptualization, it's a brilliant policy, but I believe it all depends on the effective implementation. And I would also like to say that it's very, very futuristic and progressive because already we have undergone almost a 1.5 years of, global pandemic, where we have understood that our conventional and orthodox educational norms are not going to serve either us or the learners. So already there is a paradigm shift to the online teaching learning ecosystem. It's not only a shift to the online teaching, but it's a complete paradigm shift of the mindset of the educators, students, parents, entire educational ecosystem. Everybody has started understanding the benefits of, this essential shift. And I truly believe that post-pandemic times, we are definitely not going back to the old ways of doing things. And in days to come, there will be a very, very proper blend of physical as well as digital, which I normally term as phygital mode of education. So, this phygital mode of education will actually be the future of education.
I have one question again. We have one more question. What do you think about the open book examination system that is there in India, as well as in abroad? And how do you relate with in comparison with the UK and US system?
Open book examination is a very, very progressive method of evaluation, I would say. And when I was speaking about reimagination of education, it definitely includes, not only teaching, learning, but also evaluation. So I also spoke about the problems that are inherent in our standardized testing. So if we have to go away with standardized testing, we have to devise new ways of evaluation and assessment, which gives priority on a learner's ability to create and to innovate. Now, when it comes to an open book examination, what are the basic things that we have to keep in mind? So definitely we are setting questions which are not Googleable, right? So questions which you cannot Google and answer. So that those kind of questions, the educators have to think about those kind of questions which will enable the learners to think critically. I mean, it is not something that you will be rote learning and you will be appearing for your test or your examination, which has served all of us till now. That's not going to serve our young learners anymore. They have to think critically. They have to think critically and they have to think creatively and they have to come up with creative solutions. They have to come up with innovative solutions. So, what if the book is open in front of you? I mean, the questions, it depends on what kind of questions you are setting. So, questioning, the art of questioning is very, very important, which will provoke the young minds to think deeply and critically and creatively. And the answers of the same are definitely not there either on Google or in your book. So, you have to delve deep into yourself and you have to find the answers for that. So definitely that is, I would say, a future of education and progressive future of education.
Okay. Hopefully, Dr. Mukherjee, you were talking about students dropout. And how do you deal with teachers dropout who have lost their life, lost their passion due to various problems that has impacted due to post-pandemic situation?
Yes. So that is definitely a very big reality. That is definitely, in fact, I would say it's not only a reality, it's a harsh reality. But at the same time, I would like to say that we have seen, forget about the educators and the teachers. In general, if you consider who are the ones who have actually not only survived, but who have thrived during this, difficult and uncertain times of the global pandemic. We have seen that the people, those who have high resilient quotient, those who are more resilient, they are the ones who have actually thrived. So that same thing applies to educators as well. So as educators, we are the torch bearers, right? So we also have to be resilient. I mean, pandemic is something which we cannot control. That is definitely not in our hands. Along with that, whatever changes pandemic has brought about, in fact, the positive disruptions in the field of education. So that is definitely not in our hands. So what is in our hands? We can control the way in which we respond and react to the situation, how positively we respond and react to the situation with resilience. So, resilience also implies a lot of learning. Each and every situation in life is an immense learning opportunity. But in order to understand that, what is required is a very, very positive and a resilient mindset. So, if educators are resilient, they would have definitely upskilled themselves during this time. They must have been more creative and more innovative because they're continuously thinking about devices and ways to engage the learners in this online ecosystem, which is quite difficult, I would say. So, these are the positives, even which the educators also have realized the benefits of a technology embedded education system, which pandemic has thrusted onto us. So if we realize the positives and if we be resilient, if we are willing to learn, there will be numerous opportunities that will be unfolding in front of us in days to come. Nothing to be sorry about.
So I guess we don't have any questions furthermore in front of audience. So let's wind up. So we have a formal lot of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank the people who have made us happy, that they are the beautiful gardeners who make our soul bloom. What we do for ourselves dies, and what we do for others and the universe will remain, and that is important. With this fantastic quote, I take this golden opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to the Almighty for giving me this wonderful opportunity to organize this international EFDP at this pandemic life-threatening situation. I'd like to thank the management, venerated correspondent, Mr. VM Abdul Latif Sahib, and the SOM fraternity for their direction, cooperation, and continuous support in all aspects. Next, I find it a great honor to thank all our esteemed speakers who have shared their insights, knowledge, and expertise on revitalizing education post-pandemic and beyond. It is my nice duty to thank Dr. J. Bhaskaran, Principal, and the HOD, Dr. E. Nanashekaran, for their constant support in the smooth conduct of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel started rolling a month ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye for details. My sincere appreciation to all my committee members for their continued technical support and persistent assistance in the smooth conduct of the event. Finally, on my own behalf, as the chairman of this international EWP, on behalf of Cassette family, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have digitally interconnected and have made this event a grand success. Ladies and gentlemen, e-certificate of this international EFTP will be sent to your email address. Stay tuned for more updates on upcoming events to our official event page. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again for accepting a proposal, for giving this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure to be on this platform today, and I would also like to thank you for extending this invite to me. It was really nice. It was a nice experience interacting and connecting with each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.